Okay, thank you all girls for coming here again. I know I'm taking time out of your day and I appreciate the time that you're giving me to complete this assessment that I need to do. Hope you all had a good Easter and everything was good. And like I said, I'll get into it. And like I said, this is all to do with my Cert 4 in training and assessment that I'm doing, just so I can be able to do the safe driver course. So I can not just do that car bit, but I can do the in-class, this teaching them and that. So that's why I'm doing this. And like I said, I really appreciate all your assistance in helping me complete this. So today we're going to be talking about communication in the workplace, something I'm sure that all of you here do consistently or all the time in your JobLink roles. I'll just show that you're all in here, just to make sure that the 8 of you's all here. Okay, that's good. Right, so today I'll be presenting to you one of the units of competency in this course I'm presently involved in, and that's in the Cert 4 in Business Admin, and this being part of the Cert 3 in Business Administration. So this unit of competency I will present to you today is in communicate in the workplace. And like I said before, it's something that I'm sure you all do consistently here in your roles as JobLink officers. Okay, so this unit sort of describes the skills and knowledge required to communicate in the workplace, including gathering, conveying, and receiving information and completing routine written correspondence. It applies to individuals who perform a range of routine workplace communication tasks using a limited range of practical skills and fundamental knowledge of effective listening, questioning, and non-verbal communication in a defined context under direct supervision or with limited individual responsibility. Okay, so this hopefully will relate to you all here today, being that you're all required to communicate in the workplace, being with fellow workmates, team members, and also with the job seekers that you're all here trying to help. Okay, to try and put this in a more structured way, I'll split the competency up into the elements and the performance criteria for each of these elements. Okay, so what the elements means is that the elements describe the essential outcomes. So with the elements for this competency, there's 3 of them. Okay, so the first one's to gather, convey, and receive information and ideas. Second one is to complete workplace documentation and correspondence. And the third is communicate in a way that responds positively to individual differences and involved in your teamwork. Okay, so with this first element, and that is being to gather, convey and receive information and ideas, there are several performance criteria. So these criteria describe the performance needed to demonstrate the achievement of the element, if that makes sense. Yeah, good. Okay, so basically these performance criteria are what you here need to demonstrate so as to show that you have achieved such. Okay, so with the first element, which is gather, convey and receive information and ideas, there are several performance criteria which I'll go through with you now. Okay, so you need to be able to collect information to achieve work responsibilities from appropriate sources. I'm sure this relates to your work all here with your job seekers. This would relate to you here more than me, where it's just me doing the driving lessons. Like I said, I'm not in there communicating, although I communicate with the one person next to me, which is true. So you need to be able to use methods and or equipment to communicate appropriate ideas and information to the audience. I know it's not me out there in those computers being the driving instructor in the organisation, but I'm sure there are programs on the computer that you apply and you adapt for the job seekers to be involved with. Like I said, you know a lot more about it than what I would, being just out there as the driving instructor one-on-one with some person in my little confined area. Probably why I'm not doing it at all at the moment. Okay, so like I said, you'll need to be able to use effective listening and speaking skills in verbal communicate. So I'd say this would differ with the various people you will be communicating with. Okay, you would communicate much differently to a low, say, intellect job seeker, say, than what you would with your manager there. You need to be able to recognise common cultural and other differences of people in the work context and make adjustments to accommodate the differences. And like I said, with this, there's communication and there's types of verbal communication. Verbal communication can happen in many different ways between different people in, like I said, different situations. So this can take place face-to-face, is what, like I see a lot of you doing here when you have your job seeker come in and sit there and go through your programs with them. And like I said, this takes place using some mechanical, electronical means, or it could be like on the telephone talking to them. It could be synchronous, that's happening all at the same time, like talking with someone on the phone, like I said. Could be happening between just you and the job seeker, say, or could be in a group. You might be out teaching a whole group about confined spaces or something like that. Like I said, you know a lot more about what you're doing here than obviously that I do, but like I said, and it might even just be a quick exchange of just a few words, and that's sometimes all that's needed when you're communicating. Or it could be a long conversation or debate that could last hours, could last many days, I'm sure, when you're debating some program or whatever. And with verbal communication, it's also very important about listening. So for verbal communication to be effective, there has to be a similar amount of talking and listening. Can't just talk and give instructions, but you need to feedback with the listening. So if one or both people do lots of talking but no one's listening, there's not going to be much communication happening, is there? It's going to be just one-sided. Good listening, well, it isn't easy. Here are some tips I'll just give to you here to help you develop better listening skills, okay? Look at the speaker, not at the floor, out of the window, at your hands or your phone or your watch. Like I said, I know it's hard here. I'm trying to read a bit of this, but I'm also trying to look at that you're all hopefully paying attention. Give your full attention. Don't try to do something else or think about something else. Multitasking's overrated. Concentrate on what is being said to you. Okay? Listen for main ideas. Try to grasp the bigger picture, the overall meaning of what you are being told. Like I said, listening. Keep your personal opinion out of it. Okay, so try to hear the other person's point of view and understand their message. Even if you don't agree with it, you still got to listen to what they're trying to say to you, okay? And let them finish. Like I said, interrupting, jumping in to finish a sentence and changing the subjects that's just rude, really, isn't it? So let the other person finish speaking before offering your opinion. Let them finish what they're saying. Okay, and let them know you're listening. By doing things like nodding or smiling at appropriate moments and saying things like, I see. Like I can see a few of you doing it, maybe not listening, but you look like you're trying to listen to me, so that's good. That's what you're showing. And summarise or repeat often. This gives you a chance to check you have understood what the speaker said and gives the speaker a chance to correct anything that's incorrect. And like I said, if you can do most of all of these things, you're well on the way to being an effective listener, an essential role in the communication process. You'll need to explain ideas and requirements clearly, and like I said, need to listen to any verbal instructions and discussions. Ask questions to confirm the understanding. Okay, now another performance criteria in receiving information and ideas is to seek input from internal and external sources. Input from internal and external sources to be able to develop and refine new ideas and approaches. I'm sure this happens here on a regular basis. You would need to follow accepted communication practices and protocols to assist in building and maintaining positive working relationships. Yeah? Okay, good. You also need to be able to respond to instructions or inquiries promptly and in accordance with the organisation job links requirements. With this, meaning to plan and implement routine tasks and workload, making limited decisions on sequencing, timing and collaboration, seeking assistance in setting your priorities. Now, the second element, which is very important in any organisation, is in completing workplace documentation and correspondence, something I'm sure you all here are required to do constantly. With this, you need to be able to present written information and ideas in a clear and concise language to ensure the intended meaning of correspondence and that it is understood by the recipient. That's it. I'm sure this might be more straightforward, submitting information to your manager, where with dealing, say, with a low intellect job seeker, more explanation and showing them step by step the procedure you're completing for them. And this relates to like a range statement. And I'll just quickly go through that with you all here. Like I said, if you're dealing with these job seekers and so forth with your communication. So the range statement relates to the unit of competency as a whole. It allows for different work environments and situations that may affect performance. Bold interlicized wording, if used in the performance criteria, is detailed. It's detailed in a minute, I'll show you. Essential operating conditions that may be present with training and assessment, depending on the work situation, the needs of the candidate, say the job seeker, accessibility of the item, and local industry and regional contexts may also be included. So with the communication equipment, this may include the facsimile machines, information technology components, including hardware, software, and communication packages. Keyboard equipment could be mouse, your touchpad, your keyboard. Network systems could just be your pens and your pencils, and also obviously your telephones. And like I said, verbal communication, this may include answering inquiries from your clients, answering telephone calls, and you all do this here constantly, informal discussions, requests from fellow colleagues, and use of voicemail, obviously. Now, organisational requirements may include access and equity principles and practice. Business and performance plans could be defined resource parameters, ethical standards, goals, objectives, plans, system and processes, could be legal and organisational policies, guidelines and requirements. Also OH&S policies, procedures and programs. I'm sure we all have that here. And like I did what I went through last week in my work effectively in a business environment, we went through all, like I said, with that OH&S and stuff. Quality and continuous improvement processes and standards. Quality assurance and or procedure manual. And then there's also written information. Now, this may include briefing notes, emails, facsimiles, general correspondence, could be handwritten and printed materials that you use here, internal memos, and like I said, telephone messages. You would need to, like I said, explain ideas and requirements clearly and need to listen to any verbal instruction and discussions. Ask questions to confirm understanding. Okay, now another performance criteria in receiving information and ideas is to seek input from internal and external sources to be able to develop and refine new ideas and approaches. I'm sure this happens here on a regular basis. You would need to follow accepted communication practices and protocols to assist in building and maintaining positive working relationships. You also need to be able to respond to instructions or inquiries promptly and in accordance with organisational requirements. With this, meaning to plan and implement routine tasks and workload, making limited decisions on sequencing, timing and collaboration, seeking assistance in setting your priorities. Okay, now the second element is in that's what I said. I went through that before, didn't I? Yeah. Okay, so you would need to develop simple written text using appropriate grammar, spelling, punctuation in accordance with all your job link formats here. Also be drafting and presenting correspondence with designated timelines. You must also be aware to ensure presentation of written information meets JobLink standards of style, format and format and accuracy. So to say that again, that means you must also be aware to ensure presentation of written information meets, like I said, JobLink standards of style, format and accuracy. You need to complete workplace forms and texts in accordance with organisational, here being JobLink Plus, conventions and legislative requirements. You need to complete workplace forms and documentation in a clear, concise and easy to read format. Using digital technology to find, record or communicate basic information. Stuff I'm sure you do in a competent and effective way here every day. You'd be doing that here. Okay, and the third element is communicate in a way that responds positively to individual differences. So here you need to value all individuals and treat them with respect, courtesy and sensitivity. Something I'm sure occurs, like I said here, all the time. Okay, so you need to take into consideration cultural differences in all verbal and non-verbal communication. I'm sure here you are dealing with job seekers from various cultures and backgrounds. I know this too from the various cultures of people I teach to drive that have been referred through the office here, through all of you here. Okay, so you also need to, like I said, consideration the cultural differences there. Okay, and you also need to use communication to develop and maintain positive relationships, mutual trust and confidence. I'm sure this occurs here regular where, say, someone doesn't get chosen, like I said, develop positive relationships and get them confident. Like I said, I'm sure this occurs here regularly where, say, someone doesn't get chosen for the job here that you have applied for. Like I said, I see it happen with job seekers who undertake the driving test and fail. You've got to try and to maintain that positive attitude, keeping the job seeker with their self-confidence. Lots of them will lose a lot of confidence when they fail their test, and it's happened here a lot. They then pass the next time full of confidence, okay? And I'm sure it happens here on a daily basis. So I'll just go through, like I said, some of these, maintaining the positive attitude no matter what's going on, like I said. So we'll just go through a few of them. So one of them is to determine your reality. It's important to realise that you determine your reality by the way you react to the outside world. When something happens, you get to choose whether it's positive or negative experience and react accordingly. Losing your job might be a disaster, or it might be the opportunity for bigger and brighter things. You choose what it will mean. Like I said, start your day strong. This is all in a positive attitude. Most of the population have to drag themselves out of bed and things, set a negative frame for their entire day. Positive people create a morning ritual that reinforces how great life is and how happy they are to be alive. Okay, like I said, I used to wake up and merely turn on. Like I said, I start my day reading or listening to something positive. Whether you have 1 minute, 15 minutes or an hour to dedicate to your ritual, you can start the day in whatever state you prefer. I like to start, like I said, having a good walk and a bike ride, get me moving for the day. And that relates, like I said, to exercise in the natural feel-good. It's a natural feel-good drug. Well, that's what I find. Like I said, exercise is a great way to maintain a good attitude because all of the positive chemicals that releases into the bloodstream. Like I said, I use exercise in the morning and it's a powerful way to start the day. Now I exercise by and like I said, another maintaining a positive attitude is to use books, audio and videos to overload your brain with positivity. There are millions of amazing books, podcasts, videos for you to observe from people who are inspiring and living the life of their dreams. Tap into their positive emotions and their experience by learning how they think and what they do to create the lives that they want. Like I said, you can do this morning while exercising, eating, commuting, cooking, cleaning. There's always time to have for positivity. And your language shapes your thoughts. Little changes in the language can change the way you think and how you act. Whenever someone greets you and asks how you're doing, do you answer with fine or not too bad? Think about just what this language is communicating to others. Always answer with great, fantastic. Another good way of answering is by saying great. Not only does it remind me that it surprises and lifts the state of the person I'm talking with. And like I said, number one is hanging out with positive people. It's often said that you'll have a similar level of health, income and lifestyle as the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to be fit, then start to hang out with fit people. Want to start a business, hang out with business owners. And if you want to be positive, make sure you're hanging out with positive people. And also show your appreciation for others by appreciating others for a job well done. Like I said, their outfit or their smile, you start to cause a positive chain reaction. Like I said, don't you feel great when you receive a compliment from someone else? And if you want to receive more, then start giving them out and watch what happens to the people. And stop negative thoughts, stop them in their tracks. It's hard to be consistently positive person when negative thoughts are going to bubble up from frequent in the beginning, but decrease as you practice the tips we're talking about when you can use a pattern interrupt to stop them in their tracks. And like I said, live with gratitude. Many positive things happen during our day and we often ignore them while letting one negative comment or even ruin our mood. It can help to keep a gratitude journal where you jot down things grateful for each. I don't think you need that. Okay, thanks for that. Okay, so like I said, you need to make efforts to use basic strategies to overcome language barriers, which I'm sure, like I said, occurs here on occasion or most frequently. Okay, and like I said, you need to be able to ensure that behaviour is consistent with legislative requirements, enterprise guidelines, and all social protocols. Would know what these protocols are, I'm sure. You need to understand responsibilities of roles and that it complies with the correct appropriate legislative, regulatory and organisational requirements. And like I said, now we speak about with teamwork in the community with each other. Okay, so this teamwork, it involves being able to work in a team. This is where you need to be able to demonstrate that you display courtesy and be helpful to your fellow workers at all times. You need to be able to identify and display a non-discriminatory attitude in all engagements with fellow staff members, with management and with your clients. You need to be able to recognise common differences in other people and implement basic strategies to address your own reaction to these differences. You'll need to be able to contribute to an effective working environment by communicating, like I said, with others, by behaving courteously and using non-discriminatory language. And like I said, as part of working in a team, you need to be able to complete the allocated tasks. Being able to review documentation to identify relevant information for the requirements of the job role with the organisation. And like I said, this is one part of the course I can relate to, working in a team. Like I said, from being a team leader in the police service in charge of a team, I had to meet the objectives and the commands, goals, etc. I had to operate and run with that team. Sometimes they needed to be disciplined for something, and that was always part of it. Other times it was good, friendly attitude, good atmosphere, or going out for a beer or whatever. Like I said, trying to still be their leader. Okay, so what you've been hearing here is the elements, and each of the elements' performance criteria is within the unit of competency, which is communicated in the workplace. In the performance evidence, we see that it's the evidence of the ability to, like I said, the ability to communicate information and ideas verbally and non-verbally, taking cultural differences and language barriers into consideration. It's about produce written material used routinely in day-to-day work, which is clear, concise, and effectively convey the intended meaning of the recipient. Complete workplace forms, and like I said, use style, format, and level of accuracy appropriate to the type of written material. Provide prompt responses to requests for information in accordance with organisational requirements. To complete the unit requirements safely and effectively, so the individual must identify any organisational policies, plans and procedures which detail organisations, like here, job link standards or protocols for the workplace communication. Describe different communication styles, outline barriers to a communication, and like I said before, it's all about working in a team environment, working together as a team. Okay, now with all of this, any assessment, it must be conducted in a safe environment where evidence gathered demonstrates consistent performance of typical activities experienced by individuals, used interpersonal communication skills in the workplace. And this includes access to the office equipment, business resources, workplace policies and procedures relating to communication, about case studies and, where possible, real situations, and interaction with others. Okay, so like I said, we're coming to a conclusion of the competency. Hopefully now you have a bit of a more clear picture of the various elements of being able to communicate in the workplace. Now, does anyone have any questions? Yeah, Carl? You were talking before about teamwork. What strategies would you use to motivate your team? Okay, now, like I said, that is a good question, Harley. So what strategies would you use to motivate team? Teamwork, like I said, it's about collaboration, but it needs leadership. The questions give you the chance to highlight your leadership abilities and show the interviewer whether you might be a leader of the team. Employees may appreciate creative technique that produces positive results. An ideal candidate will answer with confidence and quality. Like I said, example, motivation often comes from smaller recognitions rather than large gestures. Like I said, I make time to thank my teammates with phone calls, emails, notes and simple conversations. And so I used to let them know how much their hard work means to me and the rest of the team. This technique's made a noticeable difference. It made a noticeable difference in management. All right, thanks, Harlan. Next question. Yep. You talked about teamwork. What if you found it difficult to work with a manager or other team member? Right, this question measures your ability to work on a team and to accept supervision. Employees might be looking for an optimistic attitude and understand your past job experience. Just be honest and keep a positive role. I'll give you an example. Sometimes if it takes some time to adjust to a new manager or leader in a work environment. However, as long as we take the time to connect and clarify expectations, I think everything will be okay. I expect an adjustment period, just like in any other relationships. If that makes any sense. Just need patience. All right, and Joe, as a manager here, what things would you take into consideration when managing the schedule of others? When we manage the schedule of others and scheduling others, we need to consider, I'll give you a few different areas I think I wrote down earlier. Adequate time between appointments, could be just having meal breaks. How many appointments are practicable for one day? And the length of time it take to complete the project. I'm sure you don't want it to take months out of their time. Set realistic deadlines. Time for travel, might have to be going to Tamworth or whatever as part of it. Set recurring schedules in advance. And how many flexibility is there flexibility in this schedule if it's required? That's it. Thanks, Joe. And any more questions? Yeah, you spoke earlier about communication. Do you think culture, gender, nationality or social class have an effect on this communication? Yeah, all of these factors can change everything when it comes to communication. In a literature on this, you can possibly look up source monitoring, or as I remember it, people's inherent ability to always access the source of the information rather than the information itself. We're not objective creatures as we would like to think. Gender and gender roles can certainly come into play at times, such as the recent videos around. Like I said, there's certainly ways to work through these differences, but it takes genuine time and understanding on the part of everyone in the communication system. That makes a little bit of sense. Okay, I think that's just about it, unless there's any more questions. Okay, like I said, thank you very much for taking time in your lunch breaks and you using it to help me out with this course, and I really appreciate the help. Okay, so thank you all very much. Anything else? Okay, not done. Thank you. All right, well, that will just be about it. I'll turn this off and hopefully save it. Thanks.